left, right.
Yo, what's up, guys? Thank you for joining us for this episode of SipTalk. Today we're talking about electric vehicles, talking about the pros and the cons. If you own one, I would love your feedback. If you don't own one, but you're considering buying one, you need to listen to this full episode. I think we really get into some heavy pros and some heavy cons. And my mind is made up. I believe James' mind is made up for the not so far future. We'll see, as technology advances, what the pros and the cons look like. But let me know what you think. Stay tuned. This is Sip Talk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Crisis film.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Just to get into it real quick, this is a new setup, temporary setup. I'm next to the fireplace. James is in the James Den.
Yep, the cave.
And this is episode 63 of Sip Talk. Today we're talking about electric vehicles. I'm going to make a little drink. I'm running low on the house booze after the weekend. You got a drink over there?
Yeah, doing bourbon and water.
Nice. I got a little, what is this? Calamocho?
Oh, you're doing red wine and Coke?
Well, I'm doing red wine and Pepsi.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Calimochos are great.
I'd like a little splash of some bitters.
A little bit of lime helps too.
Oh, lime would probably be good, but lime is far away, and it's not going to happen right now. So I'd like to catch up and see who has an electric vehicle. I want to go like fully electric though, not like a hybrid, because I think for the sake of this conversation, I think we should kind of skip over hybrid a little bit. I'm not counting it.
And also, I think that's the way that the world is heading. Is a lot of there's a few states and a couple countries out there that have put into place laws saying after 2030, for example, no sales of combustion engine vehicles are even going to be allowed.
Okay. I mean, I'm not totally down yet with these futuristic vehicles, but just to finish my point about the hybrid vehicles, I'm going to go ahead and say that hybrid is kind of the worst of both worlds. You're not getting a great gasoline engine, and I don't know. I can't think of a hybrid vehicle right now that I would want to drive on a regular basis. Anything you can think of that you can sway
I think Porsche has a hybrid that's pretty decent.
I
don't know.
I'd have to visit the dealership. I think they have a new.
I think Lexus has one or two hybrids that are actually pretty decent performance too.
All right. Well, I'm going to get into my list here. Maybe somebody can sway my interest otherwise. But I want to go over some pros and cons of electric vehicles. And I feel like at a certain point in my life, I'm really going to have to. I will probably own an electric vehicle in my lifetime, fully electric vehicle. I think that's very likely to happen. But I think I will also own simultaneously a gasoline vehicle. But I predict that gasoline is going to be more and more difficult to come by as electric vehicles continue to grow in popularity.
Yeah, that's probably a good bit out, though. I would say probably not until 25 to 30 years out, if not longer.
I agree, but that's within my lifetime. So I'm trying to be realistic with these predictions. I'm going to hit you with some pros. You feel free to disagree with me here.
We'll bounce back and forth because I got a list of like 6 pros and like 6 or 7 cons. And so you do one, and then we'll kind of bounce back and forth. And if We'll see if how closely our lists line up.
Cool. And if you guys are watching this live, I'm trying to stay tuned with the live comments. So let me know your thoughts on electric vehicles, pros, cons, any statements you'd like to make. I'll try to catch it on the feed. If not, I will scroll back and we'll hit some of your comments in a little bit. The biggest pro of an electric vehicle is no gas, no refueling, no gas expense.
Yep.
And that's cool. Like, I find myself, now that I'm out of the city and driving on a regular basis, I'm at the gas station 2 or 3 times a week regularly.
You can fill up in New Jersey, which is way cheaper than New York.
Sure, but you don't have to pump. So you don't. Well, another benefit of New Jersey and fuel is that you don't have to pump. You're not allowed to pump. It's illegal to pump your own gas here.
Which has always seemed weird to me.
But it's just the fact that I have to wait for somebody to do it, and they're on another car. I just want to pop out, throw the thing in, gas up, and take off. But I got to wait for somebody. He's trying to get a tip. He's washing somebody else's fucking windshield.
Yeah.
Like, hell out of here. That's nice sometimes, but I either want my windshield dirty as shit, or
why would you?
Well, I don't want somebody else dragging. I don't want a half-assed windshield. And sometimes they're good, but I don't know. I'm very wary of somebody else cleaning your windshield. When I clean a car, there's not a streak or a swipe or a speck of dirt in that windshield, and usually it's finished with a nice clear coat of Rain-X. And when you come up to an intersection, usually in another country, but now it's happening in Manhattan, and somebody cleans off your windshield, or if you're at a gas station, the guys aren't really paying that close attention to the windshield. They're just, they're shuffling about a little bit, trying to throw in some elbow grease and work it to get a little tip. And like, I don't need the song and dance when my windshield's already clean, So that's my thought on somebody cleaning your windshield. But either way, gas, obviously, not having to put gas in your car, an overall pro.
So second pro going along with that would be most of these cars you can charge at home.
Sure, you can charge these cars at home.
Well, that's kind of nice, where you don't even have to go to a gas station ever. You can just charge them from home.
Who's paying your electric bill?
No, you are, ostensibly. But the cost to fill up a vehicle with battery power is way cheaper than to fill up a vehicle with fuel.
True. But yeah, I would say that's a pro, that you can recharge in your garage, providing if you're gonna go buy the electric vehicle, you probably are gonna upgrade your home electric to be able to support that. This old house, about to burn the place down the fireplace. So.
Well, there's a variety of different chargers. You can have one that just plugs into a regular like 12 volt 120 volt a standard plug, like a GCFI plug, or you can get like the more advanced ones that are like the 240 volt or whatever. But and obviously
a washer or dryer off it.
Right, yeah. Like the bigger plugs, and those will obviously charge faster. But I think that they have like the GCFI ones out there too. I don't know. I don't own an electric vehicle. But yeah, that's not having to pay for gas and being able to charge at home. Definitely an advantage.
Yeah, I don't know enough about home electricity yet. I'll get there. Right now, it's not my biggest concern. I'm afraid to touch it. But you can charge from home. Another pro, no exhaust. No broken exhaust pipes, and no exhaust, which is a negative on the environment.
Yep.
So I'm gonna say the no exhaust is like, I have some cons that kind of correlate with, like, no gas. I'll touch on that right now. I kind of like the smell of gasoline a little bit. For me, it reminds me of like fun times, like being on the boat, water skiing, kind of that smell of gasoline. For me, always attached to positive memories for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's tied to memory, olfactory, and it's generally a positive one for me. Given I have had gasoline poured in my face twice. Were you there for any of this?
I feel like I might have been. I don't know.
trying to refuel the boat. This has happened to me twice, trying to refuel the boat. Me in the water, and then somebody standing on the boat, and me being like, wait, and then it just like.
Well, at least you had the water right there to wash yourself off. So
that's not how gasoline works. Like, you can't just. It's oily. Gasoline is oily.
It's hydrophobic.
Yeah. So water, you need to have some type of soap to actually break through the oil. But I do like the smell of gas, so that's the downside. I like.
Yeah, but most people probably don't.
Probably. I don't know. And then no exhaust. Like, I like a good exhaust note on a car, not an obnoxious one, but I would say overall pro, no gas, no exhaust. Another pro is they're not loud. You don't have that exhaust sound. You hear a motorcycle go by and it sounds like a fucking earthquake. A nice thing about an electric vehicle is it's quiet.
Yeah, you're hitting a lot of the ones that I came up with, so I'm just kind of crossing stuff up as we go along.
You want to rebut me, though, on the con with the silence?
Well, there's two big cons. One is that for pedestrians, EVs can be a lot more dangerous because you might not hear the car coming, so if you're not paying attention and looking, you don't hear the car. So people tend to get hit a lot more often by EVs than gas-powered cars because they're so quiet. And the second is going along with your point where if you've got a car that's got a really cool sounding engine and like the exhaust note and everything like that, that's just maybe that's only something that purists care about, which I would consider myself one when it comes to cars.
Me as well, yeah.
So that might not be something that appeals to everybody, but for me, like 6 or 7 years ago, whenever I was up to visit New York and you let me take your Porsche up to Albany or whatever, like the exhaust note on the Porsche and everything was just fantastic. And at the time I was driving a BMW 135, which is also a fantastic driving car, but the Porsche won in terms of the exhaust note.
Yeah, I mean the sound of a Porsche is incredible, which that's one of my concerns with the electric vehicles. I want to hit some comments real quick because we got a whole bunch of them coming through. I'm going to hit Facebook, Instagram, and then TikTok.
What do we got?
Am I drinking out of a mixed drink out of a wine glass? Do you know I dug this glass up in the backyard? It was just kind of in a pile of dirt in the backyard.
Like a goblet.
It's kind of a goblet. It looks like a crystal glass, but it's just glass, and it's kind of cheap, but it looks cool. I like it. We got Paul Kirkland. The price of electric vehicle offset the gas savings, and also any repair costs are extremely higher. Sure, but I understand there's less cost in maintenance for an electric vehicle. But I'm sure when you have an issue, it's probably a pretty deep issue.
Well, we're kind of skipping ahead because that was actually one of the cons that I put, which is that when it comes to repairing them, I don't know if they're simpler or more complex mechanically, but the way that they're designed, it's very difficult for you to be able to do your own work on them. And so you pretty much have to take it to the dealership, and they're probably built in such a way that really only the dealership can work on them. So your costs are going to be a lot higher than if you tried to do something yourself. And also they're so heavily embedded with all the electronics and stuff that when something goes wrong with a computer system or electronics or whatever, it's a lot harder to fix than just replacing a gasket or unscrewing something and screwing a new part on.
Well, a gasket is typically not the easiest to replace. You got to torque down at the right level.
Gasket's easy to diagnose, and it's an empirically solvable problem. We pull these parts off, put the new gasket on, put the parts back on top, screw them in, we're good.
Yeah, but if anybody knows what a radio code is for a vehicle, you know that right off the bat, dealing with electronics is a pain in the balls. And if you've tried to replace your radio, or if you unplug something and then you get this radio code in your car, it means you have to take the vehicle to the dealer to have them punch in whatever code it is, or they got to plug in something to your radio just so you can listen fucking radio
Oh,
again.
I had a car like that, but I knew the code, so I could just punch it in whenever the battery died.
You're lucky in that respect. All right, I'm going to keep hitting these comments. Paul Kirkland, also Facebook, said Toyota CEO, a leader in electric vehicles, starting with the Prius, states that the fuel cell technology with hydrogen tanks is the way of the future, not electric. So that's another interesting point.
The technology just isn't there yet. But it's a really cool idea because if you have a hydrogen-powered vehicle, you know what its emissions are?
Zero. Oh,
Water.
wait.
Water.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I was half reading, half listening, but yeah, that's what you're outputting. All right, let me hit some quick Instagram comments, see what we got so far. I saw Wakas added a few here. Let's see. No gas, but has to run close to 1 million miles versus something about tech scanners automating driving. Great topic. Neo and MVs are coming up with good technology. Potentially Tesla.
You know, Neo's a Chinese electronic vehicle manufacturer. They're considered like the Tesla of China.
Okay. Rain-X is no good for your windshield. You got to challenge me on that one.
I've never heard anybody say that Rain-X is bad.
Yeah. And it'll take 15 to 20 minutes to fill up versus 80% of the battery life. All right. I got an old car. The sound on it is all, I don't know, a Pagoda 250 SL. Nice. I'm having wine. I don't mind the electric car, but there's nothing like an oldie. Hydrogen. Are you trying to kill us? Hydrogen car. Well, you know, is hydrogen likely to explode? So that's the whole idea of it.
Gasoline. Well, I think hydrogen, if you've got liquid hydrogen or whatever, because you're not going to store it as a gas because you have very little. So you'd have to store it as liquid hydrogen. And the thing is, it's super cold. So like if the hydrogen tank bursts, now you've got all this liquid hydrogen that's going to immediately boil and turn into gaseous hydrogen. And I don't remember if you did this in high school chemistry, where you took the little eyedropper full of hydrogen and oxygen and then squeezed it into the Bunsen burner. And even just like that much air mixed with hydrogen or whatever, when you squeeze it into the Bunsen burner, it gave you a pretty good pop back. So yeah, I guess if you were to have a car accident where the hydrogen tank bursts and you have all this liquid hydrogen turning into gas and then exposed to a flame of some sort, you could have a pretty big explosion. And if anybody doubts me on that, I would recommend watching the video of the Hindenburg.
I would think that might be more violent than gasoline.
Yeah. Gasoline's gonna like explode and be like napalm, where like you don't, like if you've got it on you, it catches on fire. That's gonna really suck. Whereas hydrogen's gonna be much more of like an explosion, but no real flame afterwards.
What burns hotter?
I have no idea. My bet would be gasoline.
Okay, so then gasoline could be worse.
It's two very different types, though. Hydrogen's going to be just kind of an air explosion, so you're going to have shrapnel and stuff going everywhere, whereas gasoline's going to be the actual like liquid getting on you and then burning you. And I'm not sure really which is worse.
All right, so let me hit the TikToks real quick. All right, good conversation. It's great. I really clean your room. Oops.
Yeah.
Want to clean your room.
Well, I'll buy them a flight ticket down here if they want to help.
Yeah, you're invited to clean James' room.
Yeah, I'll pay for your round trip ticket.
I don't think he values having a room clean that much. So
I just said I'd pay for the round trip ticket.
I think you'd renege on that one. Just my opinion.
What?
I just like how you turned around.
No, that's because my cell phone is ringing and I can't answer it right now.
Okay, that'll happen. All right, I'll give you another pro with the electronic vehicles, is that they really do have the newest tech. If you're buying an electric vehicle, you're buying a newer vehicle for the most part. and it's going to have a lot more tech in it, just because. I don't know what the just because is, but I can definitely say that you have more.
Well, by
tech.
virtue of a newer vehicle, it's going to have newer tech.
Yeah, but I would say a 2020 all electric vehicle versus a 2020 gas vehicle, somehow they're shoving more tech into that car.
Maybe.
You're learning more about the engine, whatever that is.
I'm going to say that that's a pro and a con, though, because me personally, I don't like driving cars that have a ton of technology and computers in them. I want to be driving, not letting a computer drive for me.
I completely agree.
A lot of people disagree with me on that one, but this is, again, like the purest argument.
Exactly. I want to feel the road. I want that rack and pinion steering. I still go back and forth with anti-lock brakes. Obviously, the superior technology is anti-lock brakes.
No, anti-lock brakes are always good.
Sure, but it is also kind of cool driving with regular brakes, or you can just lock them up, when you want. But it depends on what you're doing in the car. I mean, if I'm having a daily driver, or something that I'm really taxing, I want to have the safer car. But
you want anti-lock brakes in any vehicle. If you're looking to do crazy stuff and lock up the brakes or whatever, that's what the e-brake is for.
Yeah, but new vehicles you can't engage the e-brake like that. You push a button.
Yeah, you need like the manual e-brake that you can actually pull with your hand. But
yeah,
I will always take a car with anti-lock brakes and just give me the e-brake if I want to do something stupid.
Okay, newest tech, less frequent maintenance. Obviously, you don't have an engine that takes oil, so you don't need regular oil changes. You probably need some type of regular electric maintenance where they kind of go through, they look for bad grounds, they look for any oxidation.
There's also less moving parts in an electric vehicle,
which is why you don't use much engine lubricant, and the likeliness for something to break down is also less. So you need less regular maintenance. You're going to need less maintenance just because, you don't have. I'm sure there's got to be some internal lubrication, but you don't have like an engine oil.
Well, the electric motor itself is not going to require too much lubrication. You're going to need lubrication for the drivetrain in some capacity, just like you have like differential oil. So you're still going to have differentials that actually have to transmit the power from the rotating electric motor to the wheels, but you're not going to have the moving parts in the same way that you do in a combustion engine, where you have pistons that are going up and down connected to a camshaft that are spinning in oil.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me go through. All right. So one pro that we haven't talked about yet is that electric motors are way more efficient than combustion engines.
Like here they use zero gasoline.
No, I'm talking about energy efficiency, which is So an electric motor is going to be somewhere between 60 and 80% efficient, where the energy that goes in, 60 to 80% of that engine actually goes to driving the vehicle. Whereas in a combustion engine, they're between like 15 and at your best, maybe 25% efficient. So a lot of the energy, the energy content of the gasoline is being lost to the various inefficiencies, either in incomplete combustion or the loss of friction of all the different moving parts, and then having to translate that from the piston to the cam to the clutch to the transmission to the drivetrain and everything. There's just a lot more loss, and so the electric engines are just way more efficient.
All right, let's hit the next.
I got another one, which is that because they're so much more efficient, you can actually get pretty high performance out of an electric vehicle. Pretty much all the Teslas right now, even like the base model or whatever, are super fast in acceleration because of the power profile of an electric engine. They have their highest torque pretty much right around 0 RPM. So if you're at a stoplight or whatever and you're in a combustion vehicle, your engine's making basically the least amount of power it will, whereas an electric vehicle is making the most amount of power. So there's a lot of performance possibilities with electric vehicles.
Yeah, it's just a matter of keeping the rubber in contact with the road at that point. And
But with all your crazy technology in there, you've got good traction control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The acceleration on the Tesla S model, or one of their little sportier ones, surprised the shit out of me.
It's like 0 to 60 in like 4 seconds.
Yeah, and that's faster than I can make it in the 911.
Right. 20 years ago, 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds was purely the realm of supercars.
Yeah, and I think it was like barely unachievable, right?
Not for under like 150 or 200,000.
How many years ago you said?
20 years ago. I'm thinking about back in the era of like the Ferrari F50 and that kind of era of supercars or whatever. Because I think the Ferrari F50 had like a 0 to 60 of like 4.6 or something.
We just lost connection here. Yeah, I remember that. I remember
3.6. All right, so yeah, the F50 did it in 3.6 seconds, and a Tesla Model D can do that. Can do 0 to 60 in a comparable time. I'll look it up right now since I've got the browser.
So I'm going to give you another positive. You get tax credits typically for owning an electric vehicle. I don't know exactly how those tax credits work.
Model S 2.5 between 2.3 and 2.5 seconds.
To go to 60 miles an hour?
Uh-huh.
Do you know how much terrain that you have to cover for that?
No, you're going fast. That's really cool. So yeah, the performance that's definitely in favor of the EVs.
That's wild. All right. So tax credit I mentioned.
That depends on the vehicle. So the way that the tax credits works, as I deal with this, is the federal government started off with $7,500 as a tax credit, but it goes down based on the number of vehicles that specific manufacturer sold. So right now, like Tesla, for example, I'm pretty sure that the tax credit for a Tesla is either $2,500 or it might even be zero now. So like you need to find a manufacturer that hasn't sold a lot of EVs yet, but the tax credit's going to vary not so much based on the value of the car, but the number of vehicles that particular manufacturer has sold.
Interesting. So that's something to ask when you're at the dealer, or to search before you get to the dealer.
Yeah, you can. It's pretty easy to find the information, but
cool. And then last I got on Pro, and anybody, if you're watching live, let me know if I'm missing anything. James, I don't know if you have anything else. But last thing I have is style. Is that with the electric vehicles, you are getting the newest style. A lot of times these manufacturers aren't simply putting an electric engine in an existing body style. They're creating a new body style specific for that electric line.
Yeah,
cool.
Some of them look really cool, and some of them look really lame.
Well, that's on the con side of things. I think a lot of them look really lame. But the other thing I was going to say on the style note is that they're designed for aerodynamics. So you are getting some cool looking.
I don't know. There's a BMW EV that just looks like a bigger version of the smart car.
Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about. It's got goofy lines. At that point, I don't know why people are kind of buying that.
Yeah, I think it looks just stupid from front to back.
It's just so bad looking.
And I love BMW, but that particular car is terrible.
Yeah,
I'm not saying performance-wise or anything else. I'm just saying from a pure aesthetic perspective, I think it looks awful.
But I feel like people are buying that just to let other people know that they have an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
All right, let me hit some cons here. So biggest con to me is you don't have any gears. And it really takes away from the driving experience. We talked about that a minute ago. But really, I just think, I enjoy driving. I enjoy shifting. I enjoy pushing the clutch. I enjoy, steering the vehicle and like hand placement on the wheel and kind of feeling your way around turns. Not having any gears takes away drastically from that experience. To me, it's like eating without being able to smell. And for those of you who had coronavirus, it's not as much fun. You're losing a lot of flavor of the food. Sure, you still get the texture experience, but that's not what eating's about. Eating is about flavor, and flavor is about smell. For me, driving is about shifting and controlling your engine.
Mm-hmm. This is a purist argument through and through.
Sure. And
I happen to agree with it.
yeah, well, exactly. But also, you can't engine brake, you can't downshift, and they're silent, so you don't have the engine noise to know what you're doing with the vehicle. Those are my biggest qualms, and I just feel like somebody trying to have sex with a condom and being like, well, it doesn't feel the same.
I'm not sure this is the best comparison.
It's just, I'd totally be on board if they could synthesize this aspect of driving and put it into an electric vehicle.
So I think Aston Martin actually is working on an electric vehicle that would have a clutch and gears.
But it's got to make sense. They can't just put it in there as a hindrance to the electrical experience.
I have no idea. I haven't driven one.
But I feel like to a degree you're hindering the electric experience and the efficiency of the car by adding this aspect of it.
They would probably argue they aren't. I don't know enough about it, but I've heard that there's at least one manufacturer out there that's trying to create a car that's going to have 3 pedals that you can kind of shift and have a more purist experience with.
Look, I've had a couple of vehicles with paddle shifters, and I've had people that have done like circus routine, Cirque du Soleil, like acrobatics, trying to convince me that paddle shifters is like just barely second to actually shifting a car.
No, if you're racing a car, if you want to be like, and I'm talking an actual race on a track with other drivers and everything like that, then the paddle shifters are actually way better. Now, it's not as fun of a driving experience, but if you want like a proper paddle shifting car with like a racing gearbox or whatever, you don't have to take your hands off the wheel to shift, and you don't have to worry about matching revs or anything else like that. So it takes one action. Like if you're racing a car, you're paying attention to everything that's going on at once. So paddle shifters are way better in a racing environment.
Sure.
But if you're just driving on the roads every day, then that like being able to push in the clutch and actually find the next gear and match the revs and stuff is a way to keep driving interesting when it would otherwise be boring.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of driving is boring as shit. And, now that I'm spending, an hour plus a day on the highways, like you're pretty much just going straight. And I think that should be an engaging experience. I don't think I should be that tempted to go for my phone or, I want to be engaged with the vehicle. There's that. I mean, it's just part of driving, and I don't like being able to. It's frustrating for me the amount of time I spend during my day on autopilot, just doing shit. And a lot of people hate this because a lot of times people come into my office and they realize that I'm on autopilot and they have to do something to break me from that. And I appreciate it when they do because it helps me re-engage with what's actually going on. But that autopilot thing is kind of anti-hygge. You know what hygge is?
It's a Finnish word.
Yeah, it means like a sense of kind of warmth and involvement and awareness and kind of being in the moment and being aware. A lot of people think of it like being by a fireplace, drinking hot chocolate with a nice knit blanket on them.
Cozy is a word I hear often associated with it.
Sure, but it's not just cozy. And cozy is probably the best way to describe it, but it's also cozy not on your iPad. It's cozy enjoying a cup of tea. So it's not hygge if you're on an iPad. It's hygge if you're enjoying a cup of tea. Do you see the difference? And like that's a very difficult way to verbalize it, but that's because it's a different language. So
I got a better comparison. It's like having drinks together in the same room bullshitting versus being over Zoom.
I'm sure an aspect of that would qualify as Hugin. But yeah, definitely. All right, let me.
All right, I got a disadvantage here for the EVs.
Okay, again, we're talking about electric vehicles versus gas-powered vehicles. We're mostly just talking about electric vehicles. We're talking about pros and cons right now.
So here's one big con, which is, I'm going to kind of lump two together, but I'm going to start with the first one, which is the time it takes for them to recharge.
Sure, you go to a gas station and you pump your car full of gas. You're there for 3 minutes. You're in down. You're out of charge on an electric vehicle. What's the charge time? 8 hours? I think the superchargers that they're like basically the fastest rate that you're gonna get, I think is, let's call it 45 minutes. I'd have to look it up, but I think I'm within 10 or 15 minutes either way. But even if you've got like the Tesla superchargers or whatever, if you're on a roughly empty battery and you've got even their fastest charger available, you're looking at probably 45 minutes. And if you're doing like a home charge, even if you're doing like off of like a 220 volt outlet and their premium home charger or whatever, you're looking at hours to recharge. Now, for a lot of people, this doesn't matter because chances are they're not driving. The range on Teslas is probably like 200 to 250 miles in that range. And they're getting longer too. They're definitely getting longer. So
maybe. Yeah, they are. They definitely are. But for right now, let's say 200 to 250 miles. Most people that own those cars aren't driving 200 to 250 miles every day. But
exactly,
if you want to take one of those cars on a longer road trip where you're going to have to refuel once or twice along the way, where if I'm taking my Passat, I can get 500 miles on a tank and it takes me 4 minutes to fill it back up and I'm back on the road. Whereas if I were doing a Tesla, that 500 miles would take me one or maybe even two stops, each of which is at least 45 minutes.
Well, you're not driving cross country at speed. Like I used to drive from South Carolina to New York, from Charleston, South Carolina to New York City in 10 hours. I think I was closer to 9 hours on a record.
You were booking it.
I mean, I was making probably a record time. And I would challenge somebody who was not in a race car making that time. But
I could make that time in my Passat if I like, but I'm running the risk of getting pulled over.
Yeah, well, I had the radar detector, and that's
yeah, I don't. So yeah, time to charge, and so going along with that is there's a huge problem right now. The biggest problem facing electric vehicles in terms of further development and technological limitations
is
the
shortage of electricity, right?
Energy density. So the same weight of gasoline and a battery. So take a pound of gasoline and a pound of whatever the best battery is out on the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
The gasoline is roughly 100 times more energy dense than that battery.
But we're using a different. You said the utilization rate of that energy.
So the efficiency helps you catch up a little bit, where you can basically say that an electric engine is roughly 5 times more efficient, but that still leaves you at a differential of about 20 times. So if you go from 100 to energy density, it takes a certain amount of energy to just make a car go from here to there. So a pound of gasoline versus a pound of batteries fully charged is 100 times more energy. Now, the batteries are 5 times more efficient, so you end up with it about 20%.
I think what you're getting to, though, is batteries are heavy as fuck compared to a gas tank.
So if you want to get an equivalent amount of energy, even with the efficiency multiplier factored in, you're going to have roughly 5 times the mass in batteries in the vehicle. And the problem isn't so much the mass as it is the space that it takes to take up that mass. Because you can't compact batteries smaller. Even if you made them heavier, you can't do that. Batteries have to take up a certain amount of space. And so, like for a Tesla or whatever, the way it's designed is basically the entire undercarriage of the car. So there's nothing under the hood really. The entire undercarriage of the car is one giant battery pack.
Yeah.
And it's just all batteries. I don't know how much it weighs. I could look it up. But whereas a fuel tank barely takes up like 1/10 the size of the undercarriage, and you've got room for all this other stuff. And so as you scale up, right now, pretty much all electric vehicles are small to mid-size. The largest electric vehicle out there is probably like the Tesla Model X, like that SUV.
Yeah.
But
is that in production already?
oh yeah. I've sat in one. It's really cool. There's all sorts.
Not the squarish one, not the one that
Not the Cybertruck or anything else. But so they've got a Hummer coming out that's going to be an EV, but that's probably not until either 2021 or 2022. But right now the biggest vehicle out there is going to be the equivalent of about a mid-size SUV. So to replace diesel engines like semi trucks and everything like that, there's a lot of mass that you need to move. You need a lot of power, and you're going to need a lot of battery packs. And so the battery technology has a long way to come for them to get it to, with the efficiency multiplier, getting the battery packs to weigh roughly or at least in line with fuel. It's just fuel is right now much more weight and space efficient.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely weighs less. Electric vehicles are heavy. Batteries are heavy. I just ordered some batteries on Amazon recently, a bunch of D batteries, and that package came in. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" I was like, "Oh yeah, it's batteries." But batteries are heavy. They're very
also
dense.
going along with the charging thing. So obviously, if you've got a home charger, it doesn't matter where you live because you can charge at home as long as you're not making long car trips. But if you want to charge your vehicle up somewhere else, the availability of chargers varies drastically based on your location. There are some places in this country that don't have many of them.
I'll bet you in like LA and other, probably San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
I'll bet you California has, I would say, more just kind of geographic density. There's more in California than there is in places like New York City. I could be wrong on that, but I just have a strong feeling that New York City, I probably am wrong on that, but
well, it's just like
I don't see them. Even in parking garages, I don't see them. I saw them in Central Park a while back, and then I haven't seen them.
There's a few places in Charleston, a couple parking lots that have EV only parking spaces.
Yeah.
But Charleston's a relatively large city for South Carolina. It's a very metropolitan area. But if you live out in the country or you live in a less densely populated area, there might not be any places for you to charge your car besides home. And so obviously the infrastructure is getting better and there's a ton of companies entering the market because EVs are growing. But as it stands today, there are certain areas in this country where owning an electric vehicle isn't practical unless you're charging it at home every single night.
Can I ask, is EV entering our lexicon? Because you keep saying EV and it never seems to register with me. I pause and I'm like, oh, electric vehicle. But is EV now like computer to PC, electric vehicle to EV?
I have no idea. The reason why I'm so familiar with it is a lot of the EV stocks have done phenomenally well this year. And so I'm just used to seeing that abbreviation because in the circles that talk about stocks, that's just how they refer to them. So I'm used to hearing it.
Fair enough. To me, I just keep going back to my fucking pet peeve of people saying face covering instead of mask. Just driving me fucking batshit crazy.
Well, my father had a theory that when it comes to language, that the more commonly something is used, the shorter the word for it becomes.
He's said that a long time ago.
I think he's right about it though, because think about it. When like it was automobile, now it's car.
Yeah.
Personal computer, PC.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's definitely right in that. I mean, I think it's probably pretty easily provable.
Yeah.
I mean, just anything with a lot of syllables, it's more difficult to say. People are are going around. I think the language is changing a lot, and it's changing faster than it ever has before.
So yeah,
But,
that's
all
why
right,
I'm using EV.
I'm gonna get more back on topic because I took a bunch of notes before we started. I told you I'd jump out of that car and make some notes. I think before they order the everyman to go electric, all governments and all government vehicles and all public transportation needs to be electric. I think you set that standard first by demonstrating it, and then you can ask everybody else. But asking everybody to do it first, or even second to that, doing it together, I think the government needs to say, if we can do this, you can.
I think you're going to see it happen simultaneously. I can say, so when I was in San Francisco 2 months ago, so they, like, all their city buses are electric.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of New York City buses, I think, are hybrid. I don't know about electric, but I know that New York City is definitely moving towards electric.
San Francisco, the buses were 100% electric.
But that's how I think it should be. And buses don't go that far. Actually, I don't fucking know.
Well, so the San Francisco buses, it was kind of like the old trolley cars or whatever, but like they had the lines running above, so they would have like a constant source of power from that. I'm sure that, like, if something happened, they've got a backup battery or whatever. But
I don't dig deep into buses because it's never been a career option for me because I piss too much. So I could never operate a public transportation vehicle. So it's not something I think that much about. Not the backside of.
If you were to pee yourself on a bus, how would anybody even be able to know? It's not going to change the way the bus smells.
And I was just going to say, on a New York City bus these days, God, oh my God. Last night when I took the subway back, right near the basically in Penn Station, I'm just coming down the stairs, and there's 5-6 people kind of walking in. It's not crowded, but it's definitely by no means empty. And that's 5-6 people like having not gone through the turnstile, like on the,
outside portion of it.
Yeah, the unpaid side of the turnstile. And there's just a guy sitting there. I tried to take a picture. No, I didn't try to take a picture. I wanted to try to take a picture. He had his shoes off. He was barefoot. And it was cold. His shoes were next to him. And he was just injecting a fucking needle somewhere into his foot. And just muttering to himself, "You can see me, you can see me, you can see me," or something like that.
I would have to imagine that it was a psychiatric meds.
I don't think so. All right. So I think the government should hit the electric first. My father worked on electric vehicles in like the late 80s, and when he worked for General Electric.
I knew he was an electrical engineer. I didn't know what he did.
Yeah, well, I don't think that was like his main thing. I'm sure he worked on a small aspect of it or something. He wasn't leading the electric vehicle initiative for General Electric. But it just kind of evaporated, which made me do a little dive through some Wikipedia just to kind of get some dates and an idea on some electric stuff. But AMC, I think that's like American Motor Company, had some. They trialed some electric prototypes.
Probably back in like the 70s.
You hear that?
Yeah.
That's my old ass clock. Which, for a while, I dug this up in the dirt too. It was actually in the barn near this glass. Oh God.
Okay.
2 gongs. But it kept perfect time, and now it just runs a little fast. So, a little weird. It's saying it's 10 p.m. It's clearly not. But they had some electric prototypes in 1959. New Way, in 1960, had an electrical vehicle they were planning to produce with a plastic body. It's interesting to think that a car back then had a plastic body. GM had an electric vehicle prototype 1966, and the first successful electric vehicle the U.S. drove on the moon in 1971.
Oh, yeah, but you can't do combustion engines on the moon.
Exactly. But that's pretty cool that Apollo 15 had an electric vehicle that drove along. It was called the LRV, the Lunar Roving Vehicle. And that was kind of the first like successfully produced and utilized vehicle. There were prototypes, but they didn't really use them. So I'm guessing that was a NASA initiative. But it was developed by both Boeing and General Motors subsidiary Delco Electric, which for me it rings some bell just in my brain. Delco Electric.
Heard it.
Yeah, I didn't have the time to hit that Wikipedia. I don't know what you want to call it.
Rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole is what I was looking for. I was thinking of a different animal. I wanted to say mole, but that's not a thing. Molehills. Mole. But no, that was pretty cool. You know that Apollo 15 had an electric vehicle on board. So just think about that. How much fuel and combustion happens to get a vehicle off of the surface of this planet, out of our atmosphere, and how impossible that would be given our current technology to do that with fuel cells or some type of battery pack.
Well, I mean, I don't know how you would even be able to make an electric motor that can propel you up, because it's a very different thing to move you to turn wheels versus actually propel something up.
Exactly. What would you be like? What are those paddle boats that you make that displace water? Are you going to displace air like that?
It's not going to work.
Yeah, that's very true. What you're talking about is displacement, which is how a combustion motor works, through displacement in pistons, which is not how an electric motor works. An electric motor works by spinning, which is what drives your drivetrain.
Well, I mean, the pistons go up and down, which drive a shaft that spins.
But the pistons are driven by combustion, which happens in your engine, and then that drives your
Camshaft,
which drives your I'm mixed up here. The camshaft is driven by the pistons?
Yeah, so you've got pistons that have an attachment to the camshaft. As they go up and down, they will torque on the camshaft. The camshaft will spin and have a linkage to the transmission, and they'll basically spin. It'll actually go through a flywheel, and the flywheel's there to basically dampen the oscillations, because like every time that the piston goes up and down, that can be jerky. So the flywheel is a weighted cylinder that's going to kind of smooth out the individual piston moves, and then that flywheel is attached to like a further extension of the camshaft, and this is spinning. That drives the clutch, and then the clutch will match up with the transmission. And when the clutch and the transmission are matched, it causes the transmission to spin, and then the transmission has the drivetrain, which then links to the wheels.
Thank you for that. Yeah. It's been so long since I've been under the hood of a vehicle. That's a major benefit for me in terms of moving back to the suburbs, is that I can actually spend some time doing once it warms up. It's so fucking cold right now. December 22nd is the day we were recording this. It's so freaking cold out here in the suburbs. But yeah, I can't do any work yet. But I really enjoy doing automotive work. It's just that I've lived in Manhattan for more than the last decade, so I haven't had the space or the tools or the space to hold the tools, even if I wanted to have the tools, to do any of this work. So I'm really looking forward to that. All right, so we hit that LRV.
Do you have any other more disadvantages for the EVs?
Why did you want to add to the list?
I've got just one more, which was already kind of touched on by one of our comments, which is that EVs cost more, both in monetary cost and also environmental cost. Where you talk about zero emissions, that's fine, but there's more emissions generated in the manufacturing process of an EV than there are of a conventional car.
How much, do you know?
And it varies, but it's mostly in the battery, because you have to get rare earth metals and stuff like that. So when you factor in the mining of the metals and refining them into the lithium ions and everything like that, and then actually making them into batteries and everything. When you factor in the environmental impact of making the batteries and then putting them in the car, the electronic vehicle is going to be much much higher on its like greenness score or whatever you want to call it, um, at, compared to yeah. So once they get moving or whatever, they're way better than gas vehicles because they basically are zero emissions. Because power plants are super efficient. So you're dealing with the efficiency of a power plant that's sending the electricity to your home as the efficiency of the vehicle, effectively. So over time, the more you drive an electric vehicle, eventually you will overcome the environmental impact of the manufacturing process. And I don't remember the number of miles. I feel like it was like 125,000 or so, but I don't know.
It's a lot of miles.
It is.
Have you driven a vehicle from brand new to 125,000 miles before? I haven't.
I drove a vehicle from 85,000 to about 195,000.
That's 110, so not quite there yet. What vehicle was that? Which one?
The RSX.
Oh, no shit. You put that many miles in that thing?
Yeah.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, I had it for close to 10 years.
Wow. I love that car. That was a cool car.
My mom has it now. It's still kicking.
It's a cool car. It handled well. It was Acura, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great cars. All right, one other thing I wanted to touch on, there was a resurgence. So the late 50s and 60s, a lot of the major manufacturers dabbled in the electric vehicles. They tried to produce some prototypes or designs, but they never really produced anything, definitely not mass production. There was a bit of resurgence in the 70s and 80s. And
probably as a result of like the fuel crisis in the early and mid 70s.
Exactly what I was getting at next is the energy crisis that occurred then. However, back then, you couldn't sell the electric vehicle as well because they hadn't invented the concept of global warming.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
It is. Well, that's what I read. They hadn't invented it. But either way, at some point, somebody coined the phrase global warming, and they made
scientists were aware that emissions were causing global warming as far back as like the 50s and 60s.
Yes. However, this is where politics kind of diverge here. It hadn't been sold to the American people in a way that enough American people bought onto it and believed it. Which is a lot of how science works. You still have a lot of American people who don't believe in evolution. So
there's facts, and then there's selling those facts.
But the sale is really tough.
It's also an important part of the process.
Yeah, well, obviously. The sale is really everything, which is why I love working in the sales realm. Because I just think it gives you kind of a better understanding of people and how
that's why I like working in accounting, because I deal on the facts side.
Yeah, I have to sell those facts.
And I do to some degree as well. No, you're not getting this deduction. Here's why.
So the last thing I wanted to add in electric vehicles is that after this podcast, I'm going to be seeing a hell of a lot of electric vehicle ads. After doing some research. I feel like all I'm going to see on like Google Ads, Facebook, Instagram.
Incognito mode is your friend.
Yeah, I suppose. But moving forward, I'll definitely be seeing a lot of electric vehicle ads. It won't be difficult to resist the urge to buy an electric vehicle. Because I don't have the $85,000 in cash to put down, nor the current credit utilization rate to give me a strong enough credit score.
And the fact that you don't really like the driving experience of an EV.
Yeah. So what I'm saying though is buying an electric vehicle, it's not going to be there's not a financial upside to it right now. And I don't want
And as the technology progresses, the costs will come down. And
sure, I think. Oh, excuse me, shit. We're recording.
I got another big con actually.
I like this late recording schedule. I apologize for the yawn, but I do like the late recording schedule.
I got another big con here, which is that EVs have so much software in them that, so for example, with Tesla or whatever, they'll have like software updates where you have to like connect the car to Wi-Fi or whatever to download the latest firmware update or whatever, which means that, like, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on for a second and say that it means that the manufacturers could effectively brick your car if they wanted to. So let's say I own a Tesla and then I decide to start bad mouthing Tesla on social media or whatever, and I start generating a whole bunch of interest. What's to stop Tesla from finding the serial number of my car and doing a software update to just brick my car?
What's stopping them?
My answer is nothing.
Well, you don't have social media, so you're kind of
no. But I'm putting the tinfoil hat on and saying that manufacturers having the power to change the firmware of your car means that in a lot of ways you don't own your car. Like, for example, I've got two cars, one of which is a 2015 Passat, the other is a 1994 Miata. The 1994 Miata has an ECU unit in it that never once even understood the concept of the internet, let alone has been connected to it. So no matter what I say about Mazda or whatever, I can still drive that car. And if something breaks on it, I can just buy a new part and put it on. I own 100% of that car. I don't have to worry about anybody messing with it.
No one else is in control of that car. Let me ask you a question. Have you driven an electric vehicle?
No.
We got a comment here from Doria saying you should drive one. You'll be amazed. And I'll agree with her. You will be amazed. It's a different experience. However, what I want to say to that is I'm not yet ready to give up an experience that I like to get on with another cool experience. There are things that I like doing that I just like doing. And I'll give you a great example of that. Do you know what that is? That.
Fires?
Yes. Environmentally friendly, efficient. Nice fucking clock. That's it right now. The clock goes off at the weirdest time.
Yeah.
It's going off twice, and we've been live for an hour.
Well, what do you expect from something that you dug up out of the ground?
But it's cool as shit. But what I'm saying is, heating the room that I'm in right now, much easier, much more efficiently done, and much more cost effectively done from the equipment of the basement. But I'm burning fire. And I enjoy that. And that's much more hygge for me than pressing on my phone the thermostat app to control the Nest, which is cool as shit that I can adjust the Nest temperature here. But there's nothing like sitting with a sweater and some thick wool socks on, sitting on the floor next to the fireplace, listening to some music. And I would rather be sitting by the fire with some wool socks and a nice cable knit sweater on than sitting on, rock hard Le Corbusier sofa with some metal chrome cage around it, with some electronic heater in front of me. Like, that's not cool. There's things that you do because you like doing them, which again is more hygge. And that for me, and I believe for you, James, is driving an electric vehicle, shifting gears, listening to the engine, and I get it. It's not great for the environment, but you got to introduce a much bigger upside. Giving money to homeless people makes you feel good, but it also makes you more broke. So, until giving to a homeless person who's doing drugs feels better for me, I'm going to use that money on coffee.
I'm going to use it on drugs for myself.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, like the Miata. So like the two cars, my Passat is way faster, way more fuel efficient, way more practical in every way. But I enjoy driving the Miata 100 times more. Every time I think about selling it, I just go for a drive in. I'm like, I can't sell this because the engine runs rich. So when the engine's running cold, it backfires all the time, and like it's geared short. So like I'm constantly having to like think about what gear I want to be in, and it's just everything about the car is alive. And like even if I'm just driving slow in traffic or whatever, even doing 25 or 30 miles an hour, I'm constantly having to make decisions about what the car is doing, and it's a driving experience. Like the Passat kind of drives itself. I mean, it's still a stick shift, but the Passat doesn't require anywhere near the thought or the engagement that the Miata does.
Here's the last thing I want to add, because if anybody's stuck it out this long, which we appreciate that you have, or if you're just tuning in, you're live, you're listening to us right now. And I feel like, James, you and I are bashing a bit the electric vehicle.
No, they definitely have like a lot of advantages.
It's pretty clear which side of the line we stand on. We're pro gasoline, pro combustion engine vehicle type. Not all vehicles. I think for the greater good, electric vehicles all the way. Mm-hmm. But from where I stand, I'm going with the combustion engine. But before you argue and you say, you know what, I disagree with these guys completely, I think you need to have the full range of experience and be able to drive a manual transmission vehicle. And I think for the most part, anyone listening to us right now who's on the opposite side of the line from us, if they are currently on the opposite side, probably cannot drive and have not driven manual transmission. And that's really my opinion on that. My younger sister, as far as my knowledge, prefers manual transmission, and that was not the first type vehicle that she drove, but she basically taught herself so she could drive a manual transmission Jeep Wrangler, which I convinced her she could not buy an automatic Jeep Wrangler.
Oh no!
So, but kudos to her for having taught herself how to drive manual transmission.
And unless you're disabled, where like you only have one leg or one arm or whatever, anyone can drive a stick shift.
I mean, it's just a matter of being in tune with an engine, which again is much more part of that driving experience. So,
I'll extend my offer for whoever wants to clean my room. Not only will I pay for your plane ticket, but I'll also teach you how to drive stick shift. You can practice on the Miata.
You know that you've got comments on all platforms right now about your room. So
I mean, it's not going to change until I move, because at this point, what's the point of me doing a complete overhaul of my room when I'm probably going to be moving to a new place in the next 4 to 6 months?
Well, I mean, that could be your signature, James. Just chaos.
I fully embrace it.
All right, cool. We hit our time limit. We passed the hour mark. I want to thank anybody who has watched us live, the majority of this. Anybody who's listening after, you're watching on YouTube, you're listening on a podcast, please subscribe. Please rate the podcast. Give us a lot of stars if you can. But we appreciate you guys listening. We do this because I don't know what else we do with our time, but we love talking about these topics. So we love your feedback. We love additional topics. Let us know in the comments what you want us to talk about. Probably the more taboo or the more controversial the topic, the more fun for us to talk about.
Yeah, let's do it.
But
are we doing a cast on Thursday, or are we taking the holidays off?
We'll probably take the next live session off. That's Christmas Eve. But James is trying to make his way up here for the holidays. So if he does, we'll do a cool one together. We'll make some drinks on air. And we'll definitely be more involved with the live viewers, because again, if you're catching this afterwards, we cast, we do live Tuesday and Thursday, roughly 8:30 to 9:30. But when James is here, we'll be able to be a lot more in tune with the live comments. So that'll be cool as shit.
Yeah. In case people weren't aware, I can't see the comments.
Yeah, James is oblivious to the comments. So
Better or worse, probably for better.
So at the end of the day, we're all going to appreciate old things. Valeria, Lisa, I love your chair. Valeria, good night, guys. Lisa, have a good night. Oh, these guys are signing off already. All right.
All right. Well,
well, that looks like that. I'm going to go tend to my fire. Maybe I'll cook some chestnuts or some shit like that. Either way, happy holidays, and we'll catch you guys next time.
all right. Cheers.
See you, James. All right, guys. I'm signing off. Just hang tight. Thank you for joining. All right, that concludes this episode. Let us know what you think. Please subscribe. Please like this podcast. We really, truly appreciate. It means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to James as well. Your guys' interaction, your liking and commenting, and but really most of all, just let us know what you want to hear about next, because that's what drives a new topic. So I appreciate that, and I'll see you guys soon.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.